Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indian Debating League. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, and with me, I have three prominent debaters. If you've been following us for a while, which if you haven't clicked that subscribe button, you already recognize two faces on this call, if not mine, which is Sahaj and KD. We interviewed them very recently for their fabulous performance in the recent World Championship, and they discussed somebody who influenced that prominently, a man who they said without whom their debating journey would have been incomplete. So, we also have with us Ilya, whose career is prolific. He's known around the world as somebody who does really well as a debater, a mentor, and an adjudicator, and that's somebody having all the faculties you'd require to improve your own debating skills as well. So, with that, in the first half of this interview, I'd love to have this conversation where we learn the inside stories about this mentor mentee relationship that had taken place. So, with that, welcome to this conversation, guys. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Okay, I think to get right into it, the first thing is I'll ask Ilya this question. What was this like your journey coaching KD and Sehaj for this World Championship?
So it was very fun. I think so. I haven't met I think either of them before, before Sophia, like in person. So I didn't know what to expect. I think, and I would say also the second challenging thing was that there was only one team, so it was, you know, difficult to organize a platform so that they debate and that I can see them actually debate. We were able to resolve that in some ways, but like I think these were some challenges. I think generally the approach was, which I think is a generally good approach to have, is that we focused on a few things that I thought are important and that they could improve, so that they could basically try to improve in few areas. One of these things I think generally was characterizations and frame, and just generally maybe more broadly strategy, specifically from the closing half, but also like more generally. I think the second thing that we did a bit was mental game. I think like a bit closer to the competition. This is something that we've done. Uh, I think apart from that, it was just some miscellaneous sort of advice, that's something that I noticed that they were doing. Uh, Generally, I don't know. I would listen to. I would give them a debate. I would listen to how they prep. Then I would criticize that, and then like I don't know. We would either listen to a top half debate, and then they would try to extend and
Yeah.
position their case, or something along those lines, or it was just one speech and then trying to respond. Like we had different kind of drills, but yeah, I think this was mostly like kind of the approach, like trying to uh, see like a few things where they could improve, and trying to maximize the improvement on these things prior to the worlds. uh,
Absolutely. And KD Sahaj, I'd like you all, one of you all, to take this time to tell me what was your experience with Ilya over here, because we've had a little conversation before. Of course, in the previous interview, there was a conversation about how your preparation changed with Ilya and how you all were using certain words because it was said in the circuit, and you all realized that there was deeper meaning behind it, and that changed the way you all again approached the game. So, yeah, take it away. What was Ilya's impact on you guys?
Yeah, so I think I can actually remember just one story at World specifically. So after round five, we were at 8 points. We were obviously very disheartened. We were like, we might not even break open or ESL. And then we met Ilya, and he told us, you just need to win like four consecutive rounds, and you can still break protected. You can still break at the points that I broke in Vietnam. And me and Seth just obviously started laughing. We were like, obviously, we cannot take four firsts and three consecutive firsts in silent rounds. But I think just having someone who had that belief in us, even when we weren't performing at our best, is something that was very crucial, especially in terms of the mental game. And that actually helped us take four first in the end. So Ilya ended up being right in that. And we are definitely very happy for that. And I think secondarily, I was a bit intimidated at the start. Obviously, like taking coaching from someone who's very well known. So, but like what I really liked about the sessions was that Ilya was very, very approachable. any single doubt that we had, like they would just solve it very, very well. And they would also just sit with us for 30, 40 minutes longer if we had more doubts. So even though like our initial sessions only had to be for like 80 to 90 minutes, there were some sessions where we actually sat for more than 2 hours. And that actually helped us a lot. I think specifically for me, in terms of weighing, like I go as a web speaker, there's a lot of jargon that I used to use. I used to talk about a lot of metrics, and Ilya just told me simply, what you're doing is not right. You're just saying words. You're not actually explaining what it means, right? So you just use certain metrics, but you don't explain why those metrics are important. So I think specifically as a whip, like it really helped me become a better whip and like get better at weighing as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sahaj?
Yeah, I think similarly. I just know one funny thing is that most debate rounds which Ilya used to make us do, or like in terms of drills, used to start like at some words comp which we have seen in the past, and you were like, these are such good debates. And we used to end up finishing the round, and of course, I mean, there are times where he struggled finding an extension or something. And then Ilya would tell us that actually the OG was pretty bad in this debate. I'm not sure why they won. And we sit up wondering, I'm like, these are people who I've seen like for so long debating, and this is a person who's probably like been in the circuit for so long. They've seen so many debates. They can actually, to help us understand that, despite these speakers being very, very good, they can also make the simplest of errors through which you can get extensions. So I think mentally that also played in our minds that it's not that these people who we've seen are just like unbeatable. Anybody on that day, if you have certain simple metrics in place, you can win the round. So it was almost like very basic stuff. And as Ilya said themselves, like the sessions are very basic in the terms of breaking down simple things, talking about them endlessly. They were not very like structured that we have to go by this. It was almost instinctive as to maybe certain questions we had. We started discussing that for some time. But yeah, very like instinctive, and I think helped us throughout the rounds at Worlds, I would say.
Very interesting because, okay, one part is the jargon and simplification that KD spoke about, but over here there's also this concept of not idealizing or finding perfection in what has happened in the past, in the dinos of the past, let's say, and humanizing them almost so that you can also achieve that success. Uh, what are your thoughts on that, Ilya? How do you approach a debater? Like if I am a debater, but if I were to come to you, what are the first things you'd notice in my style to perhaps help me?
Um, I don't know. I guess the first thing that I would ask people around, like about you and like what you generally strengths or weaknesses are, like that's something that I would do even before the first like session. And then I think it already helps you kind of to see sort of where to look at, etc. And like these remarks often are more accurate than not. Like I would say that people who who see you more, like who get a chance to see you like across the years, probably often have a good insight in terms of like what are some benefits, what are some harms. uh, I guess the second thing is just to see how what's your thought process and how do you approach motion. I think listening to a prep is a good thing, because this is something that it allows me to just see what's your thought process. How do you get to to making arguments from getting the motion. It's a bit awkward, I guess. Like someone's going to listen to your prep. I guess it was not the most pleasant thing, but you get over it. And then I think just depending on what I think some weaknesses are, etc. I think these things are sort of targeted. In terms of this, like I just want to basically give my thoughts on something that was said about these big names and making good arguments, etc. I think we are all like doing this where we're a little bit creating some personas of these people that everyone is so that you can't beat some people, that they are in undefeatable, that they are so good, that they know something, that they know some secret of life and debate that we don't know. That's just not true. All of these are people. They're obviously very good, and they are very skilled people. They know how to debate. There's a reason why someone why someone wins world or reaches finals of a major or something like that. There is a probably good reason, but still these are humans. They can make a mistake, and they can just they can under mechanize their case. They can leave something vulnerable about their case, something that can be exploited, etc. And I think good thing is just to demonstrate it, to just say, okay, look here, you see, the speech got like they advanced from the out round like to the next out round worlds, but still they were kind of meh. They were not that good. They didn't do well their job. Just it was still enough, given that some teams didn't weaponize this, right? And I think this is something that probably can help people, because you can see that these are not some people who I don't know possess what kind of knowledge, but actually they can make a mistake, and once when they do make, you should still notice it and basically exploit it. I think this is something that's helpful, and that you know
Yeah.
uh, and like uh, like two of you, I mean, you,
Yeah.
you won over some teams that have objectively more rep than you, and probably some of them are probably overall better teams than you, in terms of that they would beat, if there are 10 debates, they would meet you more than you would beat them. But I think that the reason why you were able to do is because you just in that specific round, you were good and they were bad. And it's it sounds very simplistic, but actually it's as simple as that. It's you just you have to win just the next round that you're debating, like and as long as you do your best, etc., it's possible to defeat everyone. Also, one more story for that specific thing, like so you mentioned the worlds that we like, Vietnam worlds, where I reached the finals, etc. At that worlds, we lost from the team that didn't break in any category. Like they were, I think, EFL eligible or ESL eligible, definitely, but like they didn't have. They had like 14 points in the end. We reached the grand final, but we also won some teams that were much better than us. Everyone knows how to debate, and if you we just underperformed. It was a fair call. I don't have anything to say about it. It was a fair and square loss, but we lost from a team that very clearly is not as good as we are. But simply we know we're not that good. We lost the focus a bit, and we allow for a team that is weaker to fair and square win over us. So like all of these things can happen, and I think you just need to focus to give the best of you, and to find the place that will allow you to maximize your chances of winning against anyone, if it makes sense.
I think it's very interesting because at the end of the day, we spoke about objective reputation over here. And objective reputation, in some sense, is made during these upsets. If you're a team which is still building your reputation, when you beat somebody above your reputation, even if 6 times out of 10 the other team would beat you, you're making your reputation as somebody who can cause those upsets. You're sort of the underdog who's doing that. And similarly, when you're somebody who's on the top, you're having a bit of a slow season, you're going down. That's also reshaping your already built reputation. So it's very interesting. Uh, what is your favorite memory sort of coaching KD and Sahej? It doesn't have to be purely technical, but was there a moment where you felt like, yeah, these guys are they're fun but also a bit cracked. Like, they might do well at this worlds.
uh, okay, it's a tough, maybe a tough question. Like obviously
Yeah.
the best memory is when they announced that they broke protected.
Yeah.
That's like I think it's a very good achievement, and like we were all very happy. It was also New Year's, and so like
Hmm.
everyone is kind of like vibes. And during the coaching, uh, I don't know. I think I'm not sure what I would single out. I think generally just it was very enjoyable coaching. I felt that like they were like firstly that they listened to what I'm telling them and trying to implement it, and like definitely you know they were taking from the coaching what was like the worth of it, I would say.
Yeah.
um Generally it was enjoyable. It was I mean, we had fun times. Like I enjoyed these sessions. It was it was really funny, and like I don't know, but like for something that I would single out, not sure, like mm,
It's so many of them essentially that for
yeah.
you it becomes like a compound memory.
Yeah, it's just generally, everything is just, I just remember the vibes and just generally the atmosphere. It
Yeah.
was very positive, and
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
What about you, KD?
Yep, I think I largely agree with Ilya. Like, just the overall vibe was something which was definitely just very, very good. That's actually a very tough question. So when I was listening to Ilya
I
answer
have
this
one.
question, yeah, so let's continue.
I
Yeah.
have one which involves Dhruv actually, and he'll probably kill me later for
Oh,
saying.
okay, I got what you're going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say. Yes, I will.
But so I remember one of the initial sessions. I think the one thing which Ilya pointed out in our prep basically was that we are basically tunnel visioning a lot. Like we get stuck on one thing and we end up like fixating ourselves in the 15 minutes on it. And after I think a session or two, me and Dhruv were talking about it after the session in one of the preps we were doing. And we were like, we have to solve it because it's probably a constant issue. And then when we hear our own self in the prep, we realize that that's actually a big issue because we end up discussing the same thing. So I think in the second or third session, we were very focused at this time when we do a drill or something, we will make sure we solve this, and we have to like avoid doing this time. And I remember that time we had another case prep which Ilya was seeing, and we start discussing. And in the third or the fourth minute, I hear Dhruv saying, "Sahaj, we must not tunnel vision." And I'm like, yeah, I agree, we move on. And then he's like, in the fifth or sixth minute, he again repeats it. He's like, I think we are tunnel visioning. I think we have to go on. So it's almost like we both know we are still making the same mistake, but we want to project that we are actually really hard. We are trying really hard to make sure we go on from it. But yeah, that was a funny thing which came up in the first two, three times where we realized that we're actively trying to solve something. Ilya knows we can't solve it yet, but we have to project like we actually are trying. So yeah, that was a pretty common thing
Yeah,
initially.
so I think just to add to this, I also remembered a funny thing that happened. So I think Ilya told us about a strategy that, for example, if it's a narrative motion, you have to think about narratives which are similar to the adjective or a quality which is being discussed, but slightly different, right? So confidence and ambition, etc. So certain terms which are close enough but still different. And then you have to think about why this particular narrative is different from other narratives with similar qualities and similar adjectives. So what is innate about this narrative? So what I ended up doing after that case web is like Ilya gave us a motion and then we started discussing that motion. So I told Sahaj that, okay, so what we need to do firstly is think about why this narrative is different than a similar narrative. And then we spent like 5 to 7 minutes on it. After the case prep was over, Ilya told us, okay, so that means that you are listening, but it wasn't needed in this particular motion. So you still have to be careful when you're using a particular strategy. It's not that I tell you a strategy and you just try to implement in the next case where you still have to see whether that strategy is implementable or not. So I think that's also a mistake that I made. Like I just listened very carefully to the strategies that Ilya told me, and I just tried to implement every single one every single time. And he just told us that that's not going to be possible every single time. So I think that's also a bit funny, but also like a learnable moment as well.
One thing I can say right away is that your efforts paid off to at least let Ilya know that you are trying. Because one of the first things he said when asked about his favorite memory was they were implementing the things I told them to change. They were listening to me, and I think that's a very positive thing for because as it turns out, it was one of your goals as well to make sure that you seem like somebody who's listening, trying, implementing. So that's wonderful. Okay, now something that I asked KD and Sahej in the previous interview was they've been in the Indian circuit by nature, by origin, and they've seen how the circuit is growing. I often we had a chat about how they're a non-IIT team, so they have a non-STEM background essentially, which is something which we not usually see from an Indian team in worlds doing so well. And my question was, what do you think, Ilya? How do you think after this experience, and of course your various associations with little organizations across the country as well, what would it take for an Indian team to go ahead and win worlds?
So interesting question. I think that uh, so like okay, I like this is like just to give some maybe context. Like besides this team, I coached two more Indian teams for Panama. So I coached
Yeah.
Sharun and Nayantara as well as Mahor and Sai. So which also was like great coaching experience. And I think also that like they were successful at Panama Worlds. Both teams broke ESL. I also like visited India two times, like once in I think it's called Sri Ram College in Delhi,
Yeah.
one GLC in Mumbai. So like I kind of saw like a bit of it. I think India has quite a lot of potential and definitely lots of talent. I think that there are some maybe aspects of the circuits that could be improved. I think mostly just generally, I think one of the kind of issue is that at least in terms of BP, is that there are lots of debates that are like in three versus three format, and I think that like then these formats sort of there are different skills that are that are awarded in BP versus in three versus three formats. I think strategy is something that in BP is something that like the only way for you to win from closing is if you're going to use strategy, in my opinion, like any reasonably competitive debate. Uh, so I think there is quite a lot of potential. I think that probably is something as a circuit that what I would kind of focus on is just generally more focus on strategy in terms of positioning the case, etc. And then I think this is something that I kind of did with all three teams that I coached.
Yeah.
Um, I think I don't think there is any specific magic. I mean, as like that, has to happen, and now the Indian team can win worlds. I mean, as I said when I discussed, these big names that the base will listen, and I asked them to find extension on them to respond, etc. All of these people, they just went through the same process or like the same type of process. Like they were very bad at the beginning, then probably like they were talented, and then they just got better, with more practice. I think India is on a good track to do. Obviously, there's new successes in India happening. Even in like previous few years. I think just basically normal kind of development of teams is something that probably can get you there. I mean, winning worlds is very tough. Like something that just it needs some luck as well. It needs dedicated team, etc. But I think that definitely there is enough talent, and with some more grind, I think that Indian teams can be much higher contenders for winning worlds. And then but I don't think there is any magic solution or like a pill that you can take and then it put you on the right track. I think just it's a process. It requires lots of works, and yeah, I think broadly these things I would say like strategy and just generally it needs some more time and just also some luck and just general
Yeah.
circumstances.
So I think there's one of the major takeaways for me was that there should be a higher amount of single focus on BP format and the skills required for BP format over there, particularly, which
Yeah,
I
I mean, so,
yeah,
so if you want to win worlds which is in BP format,
yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
focusing more on that is something. I mean, look, this is not. I don't think this is, again, something that is required or that you need have to abandon the other formats. You can see that Australians are very successful in BP. Uh, Despite lots of I think half of the year is like they basically don't debate BP. But again it might be that there are some differences like just generally in terms of the circuits. I mean for Australians, for everyone is English is the first language, so it might be that there are some differences. But I think just generally I wouldn't say necessarily abandon the other formats. I would say maybe try to focus more on strategy in all of the
yeah.
formats because it will give you the like the upper hand basically. So
Understood.
like if there is something that as a circuit I think India should try to develop, that should be strategy and generally sort of how to choose the case in the in the plethora of cases that you might think of in the prep.
And across your three teams that you've sort of trained from India so far, of course, we have Sharan and Nandra, we have KD Sahej, we have Sai and Mahur. What did you think? Like, how did the teams differ for you? In some sense, like, what were the distinctive factors or strengths or weaknesses for these teams in your eyes?
Um, Okay, so maybe I can tell you some of the unique aspects
Yeah,
that I remember. Um, so I think for Drew and Sahej, I think one thing that I felt was a bit of the challenge with the two of you is that you didn't have that much international experience, or like not necessarily international experience, but like it was your first worlds, and it seems that you kind of didn't know what to expect. And I think this was something that was probably the biggest challenge with you guys, because like it was like, okay, it's first worlds, and worlds is generally different than any other competitions because it's the biggest one. People come from all around the world. There is such a big diversity in thought, in debate norms, etc. It's a great place, like to be honest, but it can be overwhelming. It also lasts forever. Like you come to some place, and then there is a day off, and then 3 rounds of days, and then New Year like a day off, and then out rounds. So like you're 10 days, and I mean, at least in the case of Indian team going to Bulgaria and something like across the world basically. So it can be really overwhelming. So I think the biggest challenge with this year team was that sort of how to uh, how these things not to overwhelm you, given that you never attended the worlds. Okay, other majors are fine, but they're not nearly as long, as big, as competitive, as diverse as worlds. Um, with teams that I coached for Panama, so it was a bit different situation because like they already had experience
Vietnam.
and
Yeah,
uh, even breaking at world, like
yeah,
so it was Sai's fourth worlds,
yeah,
if I remember correctly. Then Sharon and Tara broke to the open semis of Vietnam. Not sorry, ESL semis of Vietnam. Ahor was in the ESL final, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
So like they already had this experience, and I think it was maybe a bit of a different sort of issue, which was that they kind of already had some expectations, and that they were under lots of pressure to get to do better than they did already in Vietnam, which is maybe a completely different, how kind of
Hmm.
ways how mental game can screw you over. So I think this was maybe a different kind of thing. In terms of the skills, I think like I mean I can go in terms of the different things what I
Yeah.
think are weaknesses or strengths for every one of them. I'm not sure if it's necessarily like I mean if you want I can go, but I think
It
just
doesn't.
yeah.
What are your thoughts essentially? It doesn't have to be like a sort of, skinning alive of any debater that you've coached so
Yeah.
far.
No, I don't want to like be
I'm
very
very well aware
brutal.
that if you looked
Mhm.
at like some of again the dinos that y'all were watching in these comp debates, and you said, yeah, the OG wasn't that good even though they won the debate, right? I know that you from those practice sessions with your bare bones in front of you, there's a lot you can take out of it, but you can tell us what you think is right.
Yeah. No, I think yeah. So I think like the biggest kind of these differences are in terms of how to approach worlds basically. Uh, I think yeah I think like in terms of the skills, in terms of like probably not something that I think it would be even interesting to say like this person needs to work more on clarity, or it's probably something that wouldn't be that interesting either. But just generally I think there's lots of similarities. There are some differences, but
Yeah,
mostly in terms of how to like how to deal with the mental game, and
yeah.
yeah.
Very interesting. They come from different like, mental spaces essentially. Like one is the pressure of keeping up with the reputation they have for themselves
Yeah,
in their own brain in India, just generally. The other is trying to make a mark at the world level for the first time.
yeah.
KD Sahaj, what do you think? What when was a moment when y'all were firstly what do you all think of what Ilya just said, but also what was the moment during Worlds where you all felt like, aha, this is something that Ilya has spoken about, and it sort of made a change for you, in the debate.
Yeah, so I think definitely in terms of like expectations, actually we were at an advantage as well. Like it was
Yeah.
our first roles. We hadn't like any previous experience, so we didn't have any set expectations. Obviously, we wanted to do well, but because it was our first worlds, we weren't like, okay, this has to be the end all or like pinnacle of everything. So I think that's something which was definitely really helpful for us. I think secondarily, like in terms of the advice that Ilya specifically gave us, I think what like Ilya specifically told us was that some things just will not go your way, right? You just don't have a lot of control, and that's something we ended up experiencing in like our first 2 days, where some things just didn't go our way. There were a lot of descents that we ended up losing, like in multiple continuous rounds. So I think specifically, like what came to my mind was okay. We just have to look at every single round uh, in isolation. After a round is over, we cannot think about like that round what happened. So essentially, every single round is like an entirely new tournament, and you cannot carry any sort of baggage at all. I think this is something that Ilya specifically told us. So even if you perform badly, even if you perform well, there can never be any baggage that you carry to the next round. And I think that's something that was specifically very useful for us. Another thing that was definitely very useful was that we just didn't look at the back tab. So I think this is something we also discussed with Ilya. We also discussed with Sai, is that we just don't want to look at the back tab. Even if we perform well, that's great. But if we don't perform well in like let's say round seven or round eight, then our future performances might just get affected. So we just ended up going blank in our silent rounds. We didn't look at our draws. We didn't look at our performances. Obviously, when we entered round nine and we realized that a lot of really good teams are in the room, then we sort of knew, okay, like our performances are going well. But before that, neither me or Sahaj, we just didn't look at the back tab at all.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, I think case wise, I just remember round. I think it was the last day, last round of day two, which was round six, if I don't remember correctly. And we had yet not won a round. We were always coming second, third, second, third. But I remember telling Dhruv, I'm like, it could have been worse, right? Like we haven't even come fourth, so it's still good. Like we are somewhere floating in the middle. So, and I think in that round, it was on like golden shares being acquired by the U.S. government and companies like Nvidia, etc., which we had prepped about. I think we discussed with Ilya as well. We had done our own matter prep for it, so we had a bunch of matter ready for it. So I was like feeling pretty confident about it. We have enough here to say probably in this debate. I remember we were asking CEO, and of course the closing thing was in my mind that we have to be very strategic of how we play stuff. And I think the opening ended up explaining a lot of the matter which we had, like the factual stuff in the debate. And both of us looked at each other and we were like, yeah, we're kind of out of using our matter file here. Like, I think that's out. We are probably thinking something here now. And we were almost blank to a certain degree. And I think in the middle of the debate, I think Dhruv came to me and said, he's like, but nobody really explains how the US government will use this, right? And I'm like, yep, that's probably right. So the extension we ended up pulling in that round was probably the most simplest. It was just to say that the US government will not actually implement the veto. They will just scare the companies with the fact that they have the veto. And that characterization was probably the major thing which we at CEO argued. I think now that I look back at it, it was a very simple frame, which I think OO could have easily taken. But somehow they went in the same strategy of just like loading up the factual matter, where they missed this basic idea of how this is going to be implemented. And that time it struck me that often like the advice we got or the advice we got from other judges, etc., were almost simple. Like keep your extension very simple, make it easily be able to explain, keep it down to one or two things, don't run four things. And I think that's the round where it came most handy because we stuck to the couple of framings which we had, did a couple of impacting based on that, but did not overcomplicate it, did not like to run five, six different stuff. And we ended up pulling our first in the tournament in round six. So I think that stayed with me because I was like, okay, this is how simple it was. Like the extension was very simple, but it was just simply that, and the teams were pretty good. But we realized everybody was under the same amount of stress. We were, all of them are on 8 points. Everybody wants to win. So we realized that in those circumstances, anybody can make a mistake. Somebody made a mistake, we cattle out, like won the round. So it's like as simple as that in some instances.
I love that. I think it directly shows how, the basics and everything that, we spoke about a while earlier applies into your world's journey. And I also love that when you mentioned your extension, in one line, Ilya was like,
I actually saw that. I got a
yeah.
bit nervous.
And what I can always say that there is always that evaluation happening, the evaluation of whether that should have been the exact way to put it. But I love that. Now, one of my last questions. After that, if there's any question, maybe Katie and Sahaj want to ask Ilya that you haven't yet, you would want to put it out publicly and ask him a question like, "Are you proud of me?" or something like that. Y'all can go for it. Otherwise, we'll call it there. Or if Ilya wants to ask them a question, of course. But you know, right now for KD and Sahaj, Ilya, you represent this person who they didn't know they needed, and then you came in and you showed them sort of a way to reach sort of the potential that they had at the moment, right? And of course, they can build from here. Same thing for the other teams that have come forward and sort of been coached under you. I just want to know who's Ilya's Ilya when you sort of look at your coaches or the people that you had be mentors. Who's your person that you go to for your doubts?
So it's a tough question because there is no simple answer. So Okay, I'll answer that, and then I have the other some other comments on the related topic. But uh, so when I started, we had some coaches, and I mean, you like Maria Simic. It wouldn't mean anything to you. Like she's retired for a very long time. But after a long, after some years, we basically got better than our coaches, and like it would be difficult to say that we got. I go back to them for advice. Uh, After it was Georgi Ivanisevic, which is someone who is a bit more internationally known. So maybe not by older generations, but like he used to be also my debate partner, but also used to be a coach for some time. I definitely learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest way how I actually got better is because I was in a very competitive generation of Belgrade debaters, and everyone just went to and we were like, I would say we were definitely in a worse position than India is right now in terms of international debating, etc. So it was a long time ago, but we just went to the international competitions. We got the feedback from people, and we would just talk to each other and say, look, these are the things that judges buy, etc. I would say that like there are a few names like that. Some of them you might know, like if you heard of Syrian Helena. So like the Belgrade team, the first team that reached the first ESL team that reached open semifinal of Worlds. Right now there are quite a few teams that did that reached the finals, but like back in the day, it was a very like it was like breaking news, like ESL
Yeah.
team defeated Oxford and Monash. I would say that like two of them definitely like contributed a lot towards this institutional knowledge. I would say so, like I would say like it's a really institutional kind of a thing,
Hmm.
and for a lot of time that was kind of the source of the you know basically the way how I got, and like lots of people from my generations how we got better. I would say later, like what like more around Vietnam, etc. I'm not sure. I thought I don't know. I talked a bit with Milos, which actually used to be my student as well, but obviously got very good. So like it was someone who could also give me an advice, etc. So he was, I guess, also a bit helpful around Vietnam, etc. But I think it was mostly just lots of grind around it.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like it's maybe different kind of situation than like having a single person, etc. But I want to make something very clear. I think for everyone, something that I forgot to mention at the beginning. I think like look, it's very nice that I was able to help them and to many other teams to do well at majors. I think it's very nice. But I would really like to say that these are their successes. Like they are the ones who got to the Open Octo finals. They are the ones who broke protected, and I'm happy if and I'm sure it was helpful that we did coaching, right? But they're like coaches are just there to basically provide you guidance how to get better, and 90% of the work is on you. And there is no, like, you can have 10 best coaches in the world. If you're not doing enough, if you're not doing the hard work, you're just wasting your time, money, whatever. So I think just it's very important to understand, like, okay, I'm happy if I was helpful for two of you breaking protected, but like this is something that you yourself were able to achieve, and yeah.
I love that. I love that, especially because So one of the things I know that there's this framing in this conversation where you're looked at as like in there's a Hindi word called guru, which essentially means the coach which sort of guided them towards this through a forest, let's say, which was lost. But the reality being, like, of course, it is their achievement, but the perspective that I come to with this conversation as well. One thing which I'll say is we were having a chat about what was a big impact in that interview, and your name came up, and your name came up also as a referral that they were speaking to their seniors, right, from the circuit. So I think that's something which you also sort of got, that kind of flowers. You're getting your flowers from them essentially, which is why you're put in the spotlight that way, I promise you, right? So it's well deserved, is what I'll say, and I'm sure that they sort of sort of echo that verbatim. But yeah, so that's one thing. That's wonderful. Now, what I understood is also, number one, that it took a village essentially, because it was a different time. Firstly, to sort of learn your debating skills, and it's also this circular of the student becomes the master twice. Number one, at one point, you couldn't go back to people who coached you initially, because you obviously there was a moment where you'd gone past because the others had retired, and somebody you'd coached then could have been sort of giving you feedback. So it's wonderful that there was this feedback loop going on. Okay, now I open the floor before we have a chat, only Ilya and I. Is there any question that Katie and Sahaj might have for Ilya that they've not asked before, that they want to put forth right now? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, 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 just questions. But just before I leave, like, just I want to just say one thing that I mean, I think it was great that we eventually took the decision of going to India for coaching and eventually did the process. But the one thing I also want to like a few of the people who see this, anybody who wants to do words or anything like that, like this should also not be seen as just the benchmark or the end all of everything. Like we ended up still reaching a place where we felt like we were very very happy to go to. But I also hope like if there's any team preparing for future worlds or future majors, you must aim beyond that as well. Like if India does want to eventually win a worlds, we also have to think we can. So like as much as we are happy to talk about the fact that we did do well, I think the reference point for a lot of people should also be higher. Like come and take coaching from a lot of the people who are willing to do it. Ilya is one example of it. Make sure you get the help, put in the work yourself, but also try and aim higher every time. Like the benchmark also has to keep going higher for India as well, for in order to us to say that we can eventually win worlds. I mean, we've done our bit. At least I've done my bit till now. At least now, the next people coming forth should probably put in their work and probably aim a little higher as well. So yeah, that's just one thing I want to say. And of course, coaching is something which I think is not normalized in India, as we discussed in the previous interview. I think it should get. I've seen a lot of the other circuits prioritize it as something, even if it's not like the solution for everything. I think it's a good aiding solution, which a lot of the Indian debaters till now have not fully utilized. So it's probably something which we should be aiming at. But yeah, just the last, I think, a good public thank you to Ilya as well for the help, and we're glad we could at least do some part of it, which we aim for. So yeah,
Love that. Katie?
Yeah, so I think just to add on to what Seth said, I think we actually do need a mindset shift within India. When we look at debaters who, let's say, have a lot of repute internationally or who have that persona, we should have that in mind that if they don't perform well, we can beat them. They still have flaws, they can still make simple mistakes. So I think that's a very important mindset shift that I think all teams that are probably going to the majors in the future, they should keep in mind that they can beat everyone and they can lose to everyone. It's not that just because you have like 5 to 7 years of experience that you just cannot beat that team. Uh, so that's something that I think just every single team that can go in the future can keep in mind. And also like just a public thanks to Ilya for like just helping us and making us realize that like reputed teams can also lose. You can also lose to weaker teams. So that's just the process of debating. So definitely.
Love that.
No, just once again, congratulations, guys. You really, I think, made me and everyone who was part of the journey very proud. It was a great, achievement in itself to, to break protected. And I really hope that you return to Ottawa Worlds. I mean, I know it's a long time from there, but like with visas, etc., probably you should apply soon, at least according to the guidance from the worlds. Yeah, I really hope that this is not the end of the of your debate career. So yeah, finger crossed for that.
yeah.
I,
Thank
I
you.
think I think that was a perfect statement to say. Give something to Sage to think about. But perfect,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us. I'll
yeah,
continue the conversation with Ilya now.
yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much.
See you
Bye bye.
guys. You spoke about how you were focused on framing and mechanization with them. Oh, have your sort of philosophies and theories, and how do you sort of frame your own debates, characterize your arguments, stuff like that? Like, what's your journey with that?
Mm, yeah, so I would say that like look, I'm ESL, even like by standards EFL debater. So like I would never be able to beat someone who can give three well mechanized arguments that all have everything etc. By doing the same things. So I think that's like generally just for all of us who are ESL. I think the way is to say, okay, how if you're gonna say less, how are we going to be able to be more effective in that. And I think just generally, like I would say, the the like I probably have to give the biggest shout out to Dan Lahav. So like Dan Lahav and
Mm-hmm.
uh, Ayal were like, in my opinion, one of the strongest teams ever. That I think they really were able to use framing like effectively as an ESL team. They were one of the first ESL teams that was able to uh, to say very very effectively you know. Basically their case and to defeat some of the great EPL names, etc. uh, I guess just generally the way how I personally approach and the way how like what some stage that I reached is that I just try to think how does this look like in reality, and try to kind of avoid all of these debates, jargon, ideas, mechanisms, like everything like this. You just ask myself, okay, like I don't know, or like if the motion is about social media, I just ask myself, okay, how does social media look in reality? What is the social media like? How would the implementation of this motion look like? I try to imagine people and to see how these people would really interact if this motion is going to happen. And I think that like this is something that I believe is some of my strengths, is just to reality check, to see, okay, how does this work in reality.
Mm.
And then I think it's helpful for like there are two things that why it's helpful. I think firstly it just allows me to pick one of the stronger cases, because it's not just okay, here are some reasons and something just follow some logic, but just okay, why something that is just likely going to be harder to dispute because it's based on some true premises. But also I think it's effective because it helps you respond to the other cases more effectively. And look, there are different ways how this kind of type of thinking is being used by different people. Some people like to call it like structural reasons, and they say, okay, why structurally, I don't know, social media work like this, and they use algorithms because that's what's profitable, blah blah blah. Before that, like what was used is like inheritance, like why inherently social media are like that, etc. Uh, so I think it's just there are lots of people who think like this, but I think just generally the idea is to try to imagine this motion happening in real life, to imagine people, what does it mean, like to really think of what does it mean for some person that that is affected by this motion, how they would react if this motion was implemented.
Wonderful. And when did you start your debating journey? And was that sort of also with BP, or was it a different journey altogether?
Yeah, so like it was a long time ago. It was more than 10 years ago. It was BP. I was actually at the uni. So like my career is like I'm physicist. I studied physics, so it's not something that is usually seen as if you study physics, usually people don't go to debate, etc. It's usually at least in Serbia, it's usually people who study law or like political science, to some extent economy. uh, but it just randomly happened that one of my friends was involved with the debate club. I really liked it. I was second year of uni actually, uh, and then I started it. So I started BP already, like from the beginning. Um,
And do you think your career as a physicist slash academics in physics supported your debating journey, or did it impact your debating journey, and vice versa?
So I would say that there are pros and cons of doing
Yeah.
debating with doing physics. So like look, debating takes quite a lot of your time. Not gonna lie, I travel a lot because of debating. The tournaments, like you go for a weekend and you disappear from all of your life, and then you need some time to recover, etc. And probably these things make you in some way less productive. Like if I used half of the time to rest and half of the time to do my career, probably like my career would be in better place. um, but I kind of was able to make it work and to still be fine with like kind of in both tracks. Uh, I would say the benefits, the way how I think debating did support my career. I think there are multiple benefits. I think one is just generally presentation skills. It's like I work as a research associate at the Institute of Physics in Belgrade. Like from time to time, I have to present what I'm doing, the research to you know to, basically to other researchers, sometimes even to a like more general audience. Like it really is helpful if you did debating, because if you have 15 minutes to present a case that you just figure out that exists, probably it's going to be easier for you to present something that you actually work on and you have more time to prepare. um, Also, I would say like organization of thoughts. Like when I write the research papers, it's easier to see how to organize basically paper. Like I would say structure is a skill. It is definitely something that I got from debating and that I use in my career. Even impacting, like you want to stress why your research matters, is just impacting, just in different paradigm, but it's basically that. In the introduction, you want to basically get the attention of someone and to present, it's just mapping and flagging. So like I think there's a lots of skills that are useful from debating. But if I were completely honest, I would probably say that few years of debating would give you most of these skills, and then after some time, probably it's becoming a bit of challenge to balance both hobby that which I also like. I guess it's part time job for me that that I spend quite a lot of time, and a full career. But so far I'm kind of managing. So like. And to be honest, I don't think I would change anything. I think really like debate gave me quite a lot of insights into world that are valuable in itself, and that uh, just like the fact that we are talking right now, like
Yeah.
for many people, they would never meet anyone from India if they live in Serbia, or like they would meet very few
Yeah.
people in very few
Correct.
occasions. But look, I had a chance to have lots of conversations with people who are very smart from India, to visit India 2 times.
Yeah.
And it's just much, it's something that very few things gives you these kind of opportunities. So I think it's very valuable, even if it's kind of difficult, even if it's difficult to balance with the career, and just the sui generis productivity, I guess. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything basically.
I love that. And I've again looked at some of your workshops that you've done, the kind of masterclasses that you hosted that I could find online. And there was sort of a tendency of yours to speak on, let's say, post-conflict studies, right? And you mentioned how generally the debate sort of so people, let's say in Serbia, they are individuals having a legal background, a political science background, stuff like that, and you were having a different background. So, did you already have an interest in international relations, politics, stuff like that, or did you build it to become better at debate? Number one, and number two, how does that sort of converge towards specifically your interest in post-conflict studies? Because yeah, that's something that you've covered when it comes to the Balkans and so on.
So,
Yeah,
I would say it was like half half. I already had some interest in many of these areas, but definitely debate kind of broaden a bit of these interests. So like definitely I know much more about both econ and IR than I knew when I started debating. But I kind of was interested in it like before that as well. Uh, about the post-conflict societies, etc. I get it's a bit maybe also the personal kind of inclinations, etc. So I was born in Bosnia, which is a country that went over a horrible civil war in the 90s. I had only like I didn't have even 1 year. Like I was like 7 months old when my family had to flee because of
yeah,
the basically civil war. My father was basically targeted because he was Serb ethnically, and like he was like there was a death list, and like my father was on that list. So like I guess like that has something to do with that. But generally, the whole the Balkans is a very dynamical place to say, like there is lots of conflicts, there is lots of like basically every generation go over some wars.
Yeah.
So I guess these things are something that uh, gave me sort of interest in these kind of topics. Um, and then I would say again, to reiterate, I think these things worked a bit more throughout the debate journey, because obviously there were debates about that, etc. But and then it was obviously something that I felt that we from the Balkans have a comparative advantage, right? When we're discussing the post-conflict societies, like if there is any silver lining about that, I guess, is that we are good in debating these things, right? So then, it kind of prompted me to do more research, etc. So I would say, kind of, it's more like, it's more basically the personal kind of circumstances that led me to the interest about these things.
Firstly, I'm sorry to hear, of course, that there was that situation involved that should go out. Uh, but it's very interesting, you look at the personal alignment you had with these certain topics within international relations, and it of course proved to be in benefit in your debating career because you had like a unique perspective on it or a unique amount of interest in that topic because of personal alignment over there that caused you to be sort of an expert, let's say, on that subject, right? Which was interesting. uh, First, I just sort of break into a personal example, which this reminds me of the time I remember I was debating, and the topic that had come up was about the partition of India and whether India or Pakistan
Yeah.
particularly regrets that partition. And that was the first time I felt that way as well. That okay, this is a tragedy that my country went through in some sense. Whether that's good for the bad is something we'll debate right now. But I just have so much more knowledge on this subject than my opponents who might come from other countries that it just becomes easier to perhaps speak on it compared to them. So
Yeah.
fair enough, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, to be fair, sometimes it's also more difficult because people know so much and then they assume that, the judge will understand the whole context, and you were like getting the whole political and, into this. Sometimes I think it's
Yeah.
a double edged sword. But yeah, I think if you calm yourself, it can be really, really beneficial.
If you're aware of perhaps where you are in the debate, in the sense, if you think
Yeah.
awareness becomes key over there, not flowing away with passion, essentially. So fair enough. I think that's a fair assessment. Now, of course, I'll walk into your journey when it comes to worlds. We've spoken about Vietnam some time back, but I am more interested in what's coming up because we spoke about Ottawa, but I think for you there is the recent announcement of you being the on the chief adjudication panel for 2028 WDC. So I'd love to know what is that looking like for you, your future when it comes to debate, and because you're in a very leading role over there.
So I'm on the CA team of
Yeah.
this year Euros, but the World's 2028 we lost the bid. Actually, it was
Oh,
close, but like it's actually going to be in Swan in South Africa. Um, I don't know. I think I've been active in debating for a very long time. That I think that slowly I think that I'm probably getting closer to retirement. I mean, obviously, like as a competitive speaker, like I'm not student anymore, so like I finished the PhD, and like which kind of gave me eligibility in Vietnam. So like definitely like I don't plan on competing anywhere like serious. Like I'm speaking in a like European round robin in Portugal this year, and like Belgrade Open, which is competition in Belgrade where I live, so it's kind of it's chill. But I don't have any competitive plans to compete. I'll probably still be around for I don't know, visiting places that otherwise I may not have a chance to visit, or to coach someone if like if there are more of these opportunities. But I think just generally I think I'm done with competing.
do you plan to make another bid? Because I not realize that the bid was lost, but I was very intrigued by the fact that you were looking to be on that panel. So, do you have a plan to bid again for any other year?
So I mean, it's so that then it would have to be 2029. like it's 3 years from now. It's like a long shot. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm definitely saying no to this idea, but it seems as a bit of a. I mean, to be fair, like 2 years ago, I would probably say that it's gonna be very tough for me to bid for 2028. So, like, who knows? Like, I said things that I later, went against so many times about, retiring, etc. So who knows? But like, I don't know. Like, I guess it depends of the if the 2029 people who are bidding for that world will invite me. Uh, Personally, for me, what would have to happen, I would really have to have a good co-CAs, someone that I can trust and that I can believe that we can make good worlds, and then generally to have the org that think is capable of doing the good worlds. I thought that Brazil bid was a good bid. Uh, Swan was also the good bid, and like people voted it, which is fair. Uh, but like we'll see. Like 2029 is very far away, but
Fair enough.
yeah,
Like you're trying to not commit too far into the future when you don't know what that version of yourself would want.
yeah, sure.
So it makes sense. Okay, coming back to the worlds that you have done. Let's start now. You've spoke about Vietnam, so we can maybe go with Vietnam first.
Okay.
What was that journey like for you?
Uh, so it was very fun. Like really, like I think the most like I mean, obviously it was very successful worlds, and like when you reach the finals of worlds, you're in a good place, and obviously you remember it fondly. But even generally, the whole process was very fun. So like firstly, I had a debate partner, Georgia Radosavljevic, very good. It's a good friend of mine, and also I think we're very compatible in terms of the different uh, roles, like speaking roles and skills, etc. The issue in Serbia is that like everyone is kind of a second speaker, so like everyone knows to do rebuttal, weighing, and strategy, but like people are not that good maybe for delivering and analyzing the arguments, and then it's a bit tough because for lots of my previous partners, even though they were all good speakers, I think one of the issue was that like everyone had a similar you know like similar like comparative advantage as I did. So it was a bit like I guess like not the best teams in that regard. But like here, I think it was the first time that I had a majors partner that I was fully compatible with, so that we had the basically very very compatible skills. I also think we had I think the whole road to that world was very enjoyable. So like we did a few prep comps in person. I think two onlines just for the form, but like it was very chill. It was like we had fun basically, and I think that worlds like look, we worked a lot for that worlds. I think firstly in terms of getting some skills and just some matter prep, the one of the issue was that like neither was that well that good in finance and generally in econ, and we knew that the CA team of Vietnam really likes these kind of motions, which turned out to be very correct. And so basically the only thing that we prepped was like econ and finance, and it was just like I don't know. I would go to gym and just while I'm having my workout, I would listen to either a podcast or YouTube videos, etc. about finance, etc. And then basically it was this kind of prep, and like some things like I did some deeper research, etc. But it was mostly like trying to implement these things into everyday life, when you commute, when you go to the gym,
Yeah.
to when you do this stuff, so that obviously like we all have our own lives, so you can't just dedicate 3 hours each day to do the prep, or like maybe you can, but like I couldn't. But this was something that like, okay, sure, I go to gym anyway, so like maybe I can listen to it during these things, or like I'm traveling somewhere, okay, I can listen to a podcast, etc. And the another thing is was again mental prep, something that I feel I'm talking about it a lot, but like it was I realized that it's gonna be pressure on us, and that we have to know how to deal with it. And I was thinking in advance, okay, what are some stuff that will probably put me under more stress and how to avoid them. And there's some, lots of, you know, it may sound stupid, but actually I think it's a very reasonable kind of stuff that we implemented. Like one thing it was like I figure out, that the announcements and all this anticipation while you wait is horrible. Like I hate it. Like firstly, like I don't care about half of these announcements. I I know what the equity policy is. I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
anything that is
yeah,
unequitable. And I mean, I know how to behave basically. So like, I don't need
yeah.
anyone telling me like don't make sweeping generalizations. Like, presumably, I know about it. I know about the what the rules about speaking and judging are. I don't need to hear how
Yeah.
different motion types work, etc. So like, and generally, all of these things, conveners announce, what the socials will be, etc. All of these things take time. You're in the crammed room with 1,000 people. There is no enough air. You can't breathe. Like it's horrible and really makes me nervous, and just generally under stress. So I would just, I would be outside of the announcement hall. I would listen to the music. I found songs that, some Serbian folk music that really, helped
Yeah.
me go through these points. And I think like, okay, I thought about this, like, okay, what's gonna be the issue there, like how to deal with it. And this was something that I figured out. And then, it really was something that, helped me to, stay calm, to not get under too much stress,
Mhm.
etc. Obviously, it's stress for everyone. Like there is a stress is just part of the game, but there is a way to make it better or worse. For some people it might be the opposite. Some people like to talk to people and to be there during these times. I'm not one of these people. So like, I think everyone should do what really is, how do you say, what works for them. So so we put quite a lot of prep for these worlds, and just generally I think we really enjoyed it. We went to the socials, we hanged out with the people around it, etc. We also like plan to travel around afterwards. Like I spent like 3 weeks in Southeast Asia uh, afterwards. I think all of these things kind of, just I have a very good memories of it. But I think all of these kind of, process really allowed me to be ready for any challenges that might appear at the worlds, if it makes sense. And like there was quite a lot
Yeah.
of challenges. It was not easy, process at all. So it's definitely, something that I think the fact that we did good preparation, that we are good mentally in a good state. I think all of these things, and generally that we enjoyed it, and we were not like there. Okay, we have to prove something, and we have to win worlds, etc. No, no, it was just like, okay, focus on the next round, enjoy, like live in the moment, basically. Like, I think these kind of things really, really help us, if it makes sense.
How do you matter file? Because we've spoken about the preparation process. Do you not? Because I
I don't,
saw that
I don't.
you don't.
Yeah. So look. Uh, I think, okay, like I think this is something that is subjective, so I don't want to say this
Yeah.
is what you should be doing. I know
Yeah.
that some people are meta filing and it works very well for them. For me personally, I just feel that there is no purpose of opening some big book during the prep time and looking for something. The way how I meta file is just I consume quite a lot of content that I want to research, and then I read about it and I think about it, and then I think this process of research, of reading, of watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, helps me to understand what I should be understanding. There is I had some very small book that not book but like how to say, like notebook where I wrote some stuff. It maybe had 10 pages of really written like
Mm.
with pen stuff, and it turns out like for one round it was very helpful because I watched a documentary on basically that was very helpful for round 8, which was something about preventing bubbles. I forgot, but like it was
Yeah.
basically the point was something about just allowing to more money into economy, etc. And like I had quite a lot of things. It turned out very well for that specific thing, but generally I don't prioritize that
Mhm.
matter filing. Some reasons why I think it's not that important. So firstly, I think just generally the process of looking at it during the prep time, etc., is something that it's rarely gonna be beneficial for you. I think second thing is most of the motions don't require you to meta prep. Most of the motions are something that just requires you to be in a good place mentally, to know the skills, to debate, to know the first principles. Okay, you should still know about the world around you, but you don't need to read about, insert country X and their political
Hmm.
party Y. Uh, Also, I think it's very difficult to predict what's going to come.
Hmm.
And then for example, one thing that I prepped a lot was Vietnam War, or like U.S. Vietnam War. Uh, I watched 10 episodes PBS documentary about that.
Hmm.
Each episode had like hour and a half, like very long episodes. They had like testimonies of people who fought for Viet Cong, who fought
Yeah.
with the U.S. Like it was very like I recommend this docu series. It's very detailed. Obviously, it's made by PBS, so now you can say that there's some biases.
Bias. Yeah.
I would say it's more objective than what I imagined it would be, but like generally, uh, it's really trying to present many different perspectives, but obviously it's not perfect. There was no single motion around it. I was pretty sure it's gonna come motion about Vietnam War. Like I was ready. Like I had all this data, and it. I mean, I would say it was useless because I really enjoyed the process, etc. But it was not useful prep basically. So I think it's just generally people over think that. I think just reading about what's happening in the world, being on Twitter, I think it's very helpful. You just see the news and consume that,
Hmm.
etc. And like following what's going on with some focused prep. As I said, we did lots of prep on the econ. We there's quite a lot of YouTube channels about econ that I followed through. I think these things are probably the best for matter filing. Some people like Ryan Lafferty, world champion,
Yeah.
has a very large meta,
Famous. Yeah.
very famous, and it's very detailed. And it was like obviously it works for him. Uh,
Yes.
but so like different people have different approaches. My personal approach is that I think generally there is a better way to maximize your prep than meta filing, or like meta filing in that way that you have the big book about it. But for some people it might be the case that the opposite might be the case.
Fair enough. I think, this is. I also have. I maintain a couple of books myself where I write, but I don't. I didn't know it's called metafiling before somebody told me, if I'm quite honest. I just have a process of writing down what I found interesting in my own speeches or in somebody else's speeches and sort of just comparing it data. But it's not exactly what I open before a debate, if it makes sense. So I'm perhaps somewhere in the middle, but it's a very interesting insight that you're working on first principles, trying to get the concept right into you and not overcomplicate the process is what I understand.
No,
Very
so
interesting.
yeah, so again, I think you should be able to know lots of stuff around the world, but it doesn't have to be that detailed so that you have all of these statistics, etc. And if you look, like we can open some world's motions and see for most of the debates, you don't need any spec knowledge, rather
Hmm.
than just generally knowing, like, I don't know how cartels work, or how golden share works. Like, it's also like, even if you did lots of prep, like something will come around finance, about finance,
Hmm.
but what, like, is it going to be derivatives? If it's derivatives, which type of it? If it's going to be about regulation, is it going to be about about, I don't know, this type of investing,
Yeah.
about that? Like, there's so many, and
So
like,
much.
if you go deeper, there are more things opening up. And then I think
Hmm.
one thing that I think people are also doing, I think, wrong, is that lots of people are then panicking, like, oh, there is this stuff, like I had to
Hmm.
read about the, like, this is something that, like, lots of Belgrade debaters that did well, but I think underperformed a bit in Vietnam Worlds. They were like we came to Vietnam because Vietnam is -7 or 8 hours from CET. So it was like, horrible jet lag. So we came 2 days before the arrivals day. And, we have 4 days in Vietnam. It's completely different country. For many people, it's first time that they are outside of Europe. Uh, and, I was like, look, you should go around, you should chill, go have a drink, visit a museum, stuff like this. And some people were listening, some people were like, no, not really, I want to prep, there's so much stuff that we need to learn. There is, and then they
Hmm.
will, come to one room and talk about the politics of the Philippines. and like, okay, there's this guy, and then there's this meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where the guy is describing, it was basically like that about the Philippine politics. And I'm like, guys, you're overthinking. It's not gonna come. And like, the reason was because Luigi said some motions about Philippines politics, quite a few motions in the prep season, and then everyone was like convinced that you need to know who is Bong Bong Marcus and what his nephew is doing. That it was completely useless. And what actually turned out is that the fact that they didn't rest, that they didn't chill, that they didn't enjoy, that these things just put so much pressure on them, and I think later made them perform worse than if they just stopped prepping.
Chill.
What I would
Yeah.
recommend to everyone, once when you come to the destination where you're gonna debate, just no more prep. The most prep, you can go to a museum and see what's is gonna be, I guess some kind of prep, because you're gonna see some things that might be useful for you. But it's very important that that you rest a bit, because you're gonna have 3 days of debating the whole day. You're already
Yeah.
somewhere else. You're around people. You're jet lagged, most probably, etc. And then you're gonna have more rounds and more rounds. Like, if you didn't prep enough, these 2 3 days weren't gonna help you enough. But on the other hand, if you're too tired and if you're exhausted, you won't be able to perform like at the biggest level. It's very difficult for people to listen to hear this advice, and like people just ignore it. Lots of people do, but I think it's very important. I think like once when you get, okay, if you're in the plane like and you're traveling along, I guess you can prep, because why not, since
Hmm.
you're already not doing anything. But like once when you get to the destination, really, I would say don't do the prep. Like, stop. Like, what you prepped. You are with 1,000 people from all around the world, lots of these smart people. You are in a unique situation. Talk to people, go to socials, have fun, have a drink, or go to spa, or walk around the city, go to a museum, do whatever the fuck you want, but don't
Yeah.
over stress about the Philippines politics, and then later don't have even emotion around it. So it's
I see it, yeah. And now the world is changing. I've spoken to a lot of different debaters about what they think of AI,
mhm.
particularly, whether that be generally, whether that be, of course, that was the finals motion this year, whether that be something along the lines of, okay, how does AI help debaters, particularly? Do you use it to train? What do you do? What are your thoughts when you think of like being using AI when it in debates?
So Mm, I don't know. I think it could be useful. So, like, personally, I didn't use it. Mostly, lots of like, firstly, generally, the way how I prep is just consume lots of content, etc. So it doesn't.
Hmm.
I would say it wouldn't be maybe
Yeah.
that helpful. I use for like. I think it's useful if you want to learn about something, so you can ask the AI and say, "Look, let's say ChatGPT," but I think any model basically works. And you can ask, "Okay, what is this term?" and then try to explain, etc. So you can ask lots of questions and then get some answers, etc. I would say that probably afterwards you should try to go deeper than what the LLM is giving you. I think it's probably um, firstly it's gonna be make sure that you get the all info and that you go deeper in it. But also, it's not just about knowing info; it's also about understanding and internalizing it. And I think it just requires either reading a book or watching a few more videos, thinking about it, not just using it. So I think it can be useful. I personally didn't use it. Also, I debated. I think before, like it became that useful basically. But um, but I think there is definitely some use. I think the biggest issue that I have with the AI in debating is I think it allows cheating, and I think this is something that doesn't have a very easy solution to. I mean, obvious solution would be to just take people's phones, but if you just think about it, you can figure out that the logistic of it is horrendous. I mean, there's obviously there are some people that need phones because of the access issues. They need technology because like certain accessibility like issues that they are facing. But like even if you discard that and say, okay, we're gonna allow phones to some people, etc. For 90% of the people, what's gonna do with all these phones? Like, who's gonna protect them? How are you
Yeah.
gonna do the logistics? And I think this is even for outruns, which some majors are doing, which I support. I think there is a huge logistical and even legal issues, because like what happens if
Hmm.
someone gets into this room with all the phones and takes some phones? Like who is responsible? Like I honestly don't know the answer on that. But also just generally, uh, the whole process, etc. But I think it's something that probably has a chance to harm this activity. Potentially, it's even harming it right now. We don't know who is using it, who is not.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I like maybe I'm naive, but I hope that many of the people who are successful, etc., right now are not using it. But you never know. Like you have to believe that they are not using it.
Yeah. And what do you think it does as a judge as well? Because when you judge tournaments, maybe later on, before, or if you're watching a video, whatever it may be, have you ever used artificial intelligence to evaluate either your own judgment process or somebody's speech to like as a co-pilot essentially, or do you think that doesn't work?
Mm, I don't know. I didn't think about it. So I thought about AI judging debate, how it would work, and probably it will be I think it definitely will be more successful than some judges. uh,
Yeah,
I don't think it will be on the level of the top
best ones.
judges.
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I think probably I'm more against of it because it
Hmm.
just kind of pushes you so I think really one of the downsides of the AI is because I think you just use your brain less when you use the AI. And I think if this is something that just
No way, you can
uh,
speak.
I don't know. It seems to me that like you just engage with this more superficially, uh, and therefore I think like if you use the AI for judging, I think judges would just pay less.
Fair enough.
How to say it? Like they will be less attentive.
Attention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go away slightly from debating right now. I'm gonna ask you two questions within one. In
Okay.
reality, one is, we spoke about your career in physics. Now, for me, as a person who's not studied physics, it's just tough science, you know. And I'd like to know your thoughts. Like, what are your specializations in? What are you currently working on? What kind of branch within physics do you work on? And second, what are day-to-day life like? So apart from debating, if I were to spend a day with you, what would we be doing?
Yeah. So yeah. So I have a PhD in theoretical physics. So I've been working on string theory and some mathematical features of string theory, more specifically something that's called generalized geometry. So it's lots of technical and fancy words. Some things you might be familiar with, some not. I
Yeah,
mean, it is a difficult, it is tough science, and
yeah.
it's very hard. I would say. Uh, Generally, my so my work day. So I guess it depends in which stage of research I am. So it's either if I already have material for a paper, like I'm basically gonna write the paper, and I'm doing I'm writing the paper, and like doing in tech and writing equations and stuff like that, and proofreading, and sending it to my collaborators and previously mentors, etc. I guess that's one of the tasks. I think the second thing is if I'm doing some calculations, and it's literally like, okay, I need to show that to derive some equation or something like that, and then I would just you know basically paper and pen, and just derive the equations, etc. uh, the third I think option is if I'm just reading more onto something, so I need to read more on certain topics because I figure out that there is some resemblance between what I'm doing and some other paper, and then I'm trying to understand that other paper. In that, like, I would say that in the first and the third of this process, I do use AI. So, like, for
Hmm.
writing, it's I think very helpful to, ask like, okay, can you write something yourself, and then you ask, okay, can you say this like so that it has less repetition of this word or something like that. and then the AI writes you something, and then you also have to adjust it, honestly, because I think
Yeah.
AI is not that good enough, and there is this AI style that I find annoying, and also like it's very obvious
Hmm.
that it's that AI wrote it. So like I think there is this help in terms of proofreading that I think AI is helpful. uh, in the third process also, like when I'm reading a paper and I don't understand something, sometimes I ask the AI, and surprisingly it can be accurate in terms of giving me response. So like before that I used to Google these things, like right now just ask the AI, and then I again, it's not the end of it. Like it would
Yeah.
be very poor science if that was the end. But like
Yeah.
it can be helpful to sort of give you some perspective, so to know what to read, what to search next, etc.
Yeah.
So I think it's generally that, like it's like it would be very difficult to tell you and to explain to you like what exactly I'm working on, because
Hmm.
it's very technical. Like it would just open five more questions. Like I mean, my thesis was about courant algebra in t-duality in string theory, so probably like it opened more questions than it gave answers.
Answer. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, something like that. In terms of my professional work, this is, I would say, some
Very
stuff that I'm
interesting.
working on. Yeah.
And if I were to follow you around for a day, sort of like a bug, what would I see? What's your hobbies? What do you do in life generally?
Yes, I'm trying to work out. It like kind of comes and goes. So like there is that. Uh, other than that, I don't know, I like to go for drinks with friends, and just to, especially on the weekends, sometimes even to go out. But with time it becomes less and less often.
Yeah.
I guess after some point in life we start to to age, I guess. Um, so there is that. I, I don't know, lots of other like cinema, theater, all these kind of things. Like I don't go as often as I would like to. It's just some inertia, but like I try to go more often to watch
Yeah.
movies and plays. I think
Oh.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting, but somehow like I don't go as often as I would like to. And then I would say like travel. Like I travel quite a
Hmm.
lot. Uh, I try to travel with work, but also with debate. So, and then also there is like travel as
A
holiday.
luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like something that I think is something that I like about debating. As I mentioned, is there is lots of chances to travel. But yeah, I would say like some of these usual kind of things. I mean, lots of the time, like if you really to follow me, like you'll probably get see me like scrolling through social media for more time than is healthy. But I guess I'm not immune to these kind of vices either. But yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense because, firstly, as you mentioned, the kind of work you do takes a lot of mental real estate. It takes a lot of your energy. So you want to do things are s- which engage you, but just at a sort of safe distance where you can enjoy yourself and don't use a lot of your brain. So
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. And okay, now as you probably watched more debates than I have by a large margin, right?
probably.
And what are the best debate resources that you found online? Like whether that be watching another person's speech, where you say, okay, look at this person's speech for closing opposition. This is what you should do, or versus this is a workshop that you should watch. Are there any shout outs you might want to give to people who could sort of go and learn something from these things?
Yeah. Okay, I would have to think about it, but like there are a few things that come up to my mind about debates. So I think there is a very good debate. So it's yeah, IBADU. So it's IBADU. So it was some tournament of nations. So like it's online tournament organized by Bangladesh. The finals of it, you can see it. There is lots of big names. Debate is maybe not of so like probably there is a higher quality debates overall, I assume, but all teams are good. And it's interesting that I think you can see how closing teams are doing in a debate that doesn't have that maybe clashes, maybe specifically CG with compares to the OG, like the way how they are able to explain basically what OG is trying to run in a better way. And I think it's very like I think it's useful for like quote unquote analytical extension. I think very good like one resource that I would definitely recommend. uh Other than that, workshops, honestly, like I haven't watched a workshop for a long time. uh, so like not sure like so like there is I can give some shout outs to some older maybe workshops. So like there is this one on framing by Adam Hawksby. So Adam
Mm-hmm.
Hawksby won Euros like more than probably 15 years at this point ago. But so it's very short one. It's like 30 minutes workshop, something like that. So
Yeah.
really, like you can watch it like uh,
Whenever, yeah.
whenever. It's not something that
Yeah.
requires you a whole afternoon or
To
something
set
like
out
that.
time, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's very kind of in intuitive way. I think he explains well frame, etc. Uh, Uh, what else? I think, yeah, definitely the shout out to Korea World's training program. Specifically, they have these modules. So like the way how they organize their training program is like they were like, okay, look, rebuttal, and then they have like 5 short videos on rebuttal, and then they tell you, okay, here are the skills that you need for rebuttal. Like you need tracking, you need I don't know, analysis, you need sort of like mechanism, like some of the things that like conclusion of rebuttal, etc. And then they give you very short explanation how to practice, and etc. I think it was Korea Worlds, like maybe it was not, but it's a kind of debate
Hmm.
gym kind of aspects. It's going to be this Black Sea Euros training program, but like if not, like Korea Worlds also has these modules like on extension, like some short lectures, etc. I think it might be useful because it's not like 2 hour long
Yeah.
talk, but some maybe shorter kind of aspects. And I think there is quite a lot of resources on YouTube that are relevant for prep. So TLDR news that has TLDR US politics, like TLDR in the name of the channel, like any name of the channel that starts by this, is I think very good. They have like usually around 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes videos where they give you like as it's given in the name, like TLDR of things, and they
Hmm.
really try to be objective. Obviously, nothing is objective in the world. Even the things that I'm right now saying is biased, right? But they give you, I would say, good overview that is good for debate. Like they tell you, some of the important aspects you should know. I would say probably you need to read more about that or to watch more videos around that afterwards. But I think it's a very good start, and definitely a channel that I would like to recommend.
Hmm.
Uh, what else? I don't know. I think
It,
yeah. I think probably like for now it's
that's good.
it's good. Like if people really watch these few these few modules, that workshop, that debate, and like if they follow this channel, probably they will, and if they how they say critically engage with this material, probably
Hmm.
they will improve their debating already. So
And naturally, this algorithm will make them reach the other channels they
yeah,
should.
yeah,
So fair
yeah.
enough.
The algorithms will do
The
the
rest of the
the
magic.
magic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Fair enough. And again, you've worn so many hats. You've been a judge, you've been a coach, you've been a speaker. Uh, which role do you like the most? Which role are you towards, like biased towards the most?
Well, speaker is the best role, honestly. It's just the most fun, and
Yeah,
competing, etc. It just it gives you the adrenaline, etc. Like there is no
nothing like it.
there is no just it's the top place. The second one is coaching, because I think it's very good when you are able to help someone, especially if these people are doing well, or if they're just and also if the process was nice and enjoyable. And it's it's difficult to coach people. It just takes lots of your energy, but I think the reward of it is very very nice, and there is quite a lot of things that I coach that I'm proud of. I mean, including the all three Indian teams that I mentioned, but lots of teams in Serbia as well. Um, Judging, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't enjoy it that much, to be honest.
Hmm.
Some rounds it's interesting to judge. Like, I don't know. Like at this world, I was able to judge with some people that are really that I didn't have a chance before, but they are very smart individuals. Was very enjoyable
Hmm.
judging. Like one of them ran Lafferty, like the world champion. One Tejas, like also like
Hmm.
I never had a chance, so it was very interesting to see how they think, etc. And like it was something. It was fun. So like there are still some of these situations of judging that I
Hmm.
enjoy, but to be honest, generally I don't enjoy it. I find it the most boring. The reason why I do it is just because it allows me to attend the competition without
Yeah.
breaking my budget and to cover my flights to somewhere that I want to go. But it's generally like not something that definitely
Hmm.
something I enjoy the least.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And now that we've spoken so much, you've been in the circuit for so long, worn all these hats. Two questions comprised in one. Again, that's the style I have at the moment, so I'll go with it. But they are flowing thoughts, I promise you. Which is because now, of course, you set up a bid for Brazil, and you had a vision for what that world would look like, right? So if you had it your way, not just Brazil, but for any of these hypothetical worlds that you'll be at the helm of, what would that world look like, and how would that be different from what currently perhaps happens? So, like, what's in your opinion like, the ideal way to host worlds, situation around it, stuff like that? And the second, what would you say is required to make debating even more mainstream in the world?
Okay, so the first one is probably easier to answer
Yeah.
because I think generally Worlds is on a right track. I think I like I think over the time lots of positive norms have been established. I think obviously I mean we can all say like I didn't like this specific motion that was set at these specific worlds or like some allocations. Like I think I have the like nothing would be perfect, but like I think generally overall I think Worlds is on a good track. I think one thing that I think I kind of find a bit annoying about the norms is the kind of fetishization of the originality in testing, not testing, motion setting. So like oh we all have to set the motion that was never and like oh yeah but this motion was set 2 years ago at insert displays online competition and obviously there is a especially for BP where you also have to test on for depth right there is a very limited amount I would say of motions that are good uh, and then I would say like even if you don't take that into account, I think there are some debates that are just generally important questions that we have to debate, right? So like I think generally like what is the limit of the freedom of speech is probably a question that is as long as time, right? We have to discuss
Yeah.
it, right? What is the I don't know purpose of life, whether we should have
Hmm.
a more uh, more minimal, like more libertarian or more social state. Like some of these things that I think that like are not that set because there is this bias that they are set all the time and that we all know how to debate them. Well, on the other hand, I think people are even not that good in debating these very basic motions. So I think one thing that I think potentially that like that I think more what we could be doing is to just set more standard debates that are just generally debates in society etc etc things like that but I think otherwise I think the world's really and generally debating I think is on the right track uh, now in order to make debating more popular uh, it's I guess it's a bit difficult thing I guess the way to get is to try to make it a bit more commercial which I
Yeah.
mean, you could say it's
Yes.
the same thing, but like
Hmm.
I think one way is just maybe to like to try to get to create like academies that's gonna be, for profit, basically getting people to start debating, etc. And then I think these things could, like basically to market debating as a very important skill, which I think it is. I think it would
Yeah.
be fair marketing. uh, uh, I guess the issue with that is there is a limited kind of amount of people, or a limited market that this tackles, given that, just not many people can, pay to do a hobby or debating or extracurricular activities. To be honest, many people are paying also for lots of different things. So like perhaps maybe it's not that small market, but I think like this is definitely something that could, popularize debating
Yeah.
more. Uh, but yeah, I think it's a bit tough, like
Yeah.
to give the some satisfactory answer to that question.
Fair enough. Okay, I think. Do you have a message for the world? Because I've kept you for too long. I told you this interview won't go on for this long, so I don't want to hold on to you that way. But is there a message you want to give to the world right now? Okay,
Um,
in the debating spectrum, anything like that?
Not really. I think just generally, maybe something that we started with kind of, and I think maybe it's good to reiterate that. It's just, everyone, I assume that many people want to get better at debating and they want to win worlds. Okay, probably you won't be able to win worlds because, just
It's
one
yeah,
team a year wins the worlds. But,
yeah.
if you want to get better in debating and to have some, you have to understand this is a process. It requires lots of, work on your skills. It requires lots of, work on your mental game and to be stable when it comes to these worlds. But it is very important to understand that, it's mm, it's a very bumpy and very long process that, you have to trust this process. And everyone uh, who debated and who you think some name is and who you think is so good in debating that you see them as an idol or like as a debate god or whatever. Every one of these people was bad at the beginning and like went from some, mediocre novice to either world champion, world finalist, whatever you want to call. So I think hopefully this just, helps people to trust the process and to just, don't
Hmm.
to understand basically that, nothing is ideal and perfect in the world, and just, they can do it if they really want to do it, etc. And hopefully like the last thing about it is I think it's very important for people to understand that if you really are interested in debating, like, and you want to get debating because you're interested in it, you should trust the process. If you just want to do it because, you want to be able to say that you're successful in debating, probably like, it's not the best motivation. So I think just you should be, like, if it's really something that interested you, you should just try to be better on it and trust the process. And like, it will take some time, but, it's doable, like, for everyone basically.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Ilya. It has been an absolute pleasure. I have learned a lot. I've taken a lot of notes. Won't call this matter filing right now, considering I know your bias against it. But jokes aside,
So,
it has been an absolute privilege, and I hope and I'm sure people will get a lot out of this. So thank you
okay,
for giving us your time.
thank you for inviting